Hey guys, it's that one gaming nerd guy again, coming at you with a live vlog. I haven't done this in a few weeks, and I wanted to get back on here, and I wanted to talk about something pretty um, specific to me only, I guess. Not a lot of you people that are subscribed to me are probably in the Scouts, but I want to talk about this one issue because there's a lot of yelling on either side about this. Um, and I also wanted to kind of let you know a little bit about me and about what I believe. I Just as a premise before I get into my actual opinion about the Scouts and what's been going on recently. I am an Eagle Scout. I got my Eagle Scout in 2007. Um, I earned it through a lot of hard work and pain and tears, and a lot of people pushing me and helping me along the way. Um, but yeah, I got that back in 2007 when I was 18. Well, 17 technically. I was awarded it when I was 18, um, but I earned it before then because you have to earn it before you turn 18, or else it's not valid. But at any rate, I was a Tiger Cub in the Cub Scouts when I was 6, and I went through the entire program all the way through to Eagle Scout and beyond. I actually became an adult volunteer as a assistant scoutmaster for about a year or two, and then after that, I became scoutmaster for 2 years of my troop and tried to help them a little bit. I didn't do a very good job, to be honest, but that was just mainly due to inexperience and trying to please everyone, which you can't do. You have to run the program the way you like, the way you think is best, and do your best while you do it. I tried to please everyone and ended up not pleasing anybody and not doing a very good job. So if I had a chance to do it over, I would do it very differently. But at any rate, that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to let you know that because I have a little experience with the scouting program. I was part of all 5 different programs, which for those of you that don't know, there's actually 5 different scouting programs. A lot of people think that there's just the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts. There's actually another 3 programs that a lot of people don't talk about. There's the Cub Scouts, which are for kids ages like 6 to 11 or so. About a 5 or 6 year period there where kids grew up through basically elementary going into middle school. Elementary school going into middle school, and they go through all the different ranks and they earn badges and different things going on outings. But not a lot of camping in the Cub Scouts. You can have camping, but it's a very family camping atmosphere. A lot of car camping basically is what I'd call it. Um, you do set up a tent, but you're like 5 feet away basically, and you can get back to civilization. You're not very far away. You choose to become an adult leader or an adult member after you turn 18, if you wish, but you're no longer a youth member at that point. So, and I've gone through that, and then there's something called varsity scouting. Varsity scouting is a specific program branch of the scouting program, which is BSA, um, and it is mainly focused on sports. One of the reasons why it's called varsity. You don't have to do sports. You can do all sorts of different things, but it has its own set of awards. It has its own sets of rules. The one thing, though, is that you do have to be part of a Boy Scout troop to become part of a varsity team. So there's different types of units for the different types of programs and Scouts. And then there's something called a venturing crew. So you can be part of a Cub Scout pack. So there's the pack, the troop, the team, and then there's a crew, a venturing crew. One of the reasons why they were called venturing crew is this was founded, I think, like 15 years ago by some very smart people that saw an opportunity. Now, this is where it gets interesting. They saw an opportunity for girls and boys to do much, much higher end adventure, high adventure, doing things that normal Boy Scouts wouldn't do. I mean, Boy Scouts would go kayaking, they would go canoeing, hiking, right? But they might not go rock climbing necessarily. I mean, they could, but they might not go rock climbing in the Rockies, or they wouldn't go to a base camp in the base of the Rockies and go hiking for 70 miles for 11 days, and in the Rockies, doing all sorts of things from black powder rifle shooting to, uh, blacksmithing, rock climb. I mean, all these kinds of things. Skydiving you could do in venturing. It is very, very common type of thing. High adventure kind of stuff. I wouldn't say extreme sports necessarily, but high adventure, right? Because extreme sports is just dangerous, like base jump diving and stuff like that, base diving. But yeah, so much, much higher end, more geared toward older scouts. The age range for venturing is from 14 to 21. So you actually have a 3-year gap there after you turn 18 that you can still be a youth member of a venturing crew before you turn 21. So basically, once you turn 21 and venturing, then you're out of being a youth member, but you can still be an adult member, right? So there's that. There's the venturing crew. And then there's a separate program that used to be its own entity apart from the actual scouting program, but now they've joined in. I can't remember how long ago, but this is the Sea Scouts. And Sea Scouts is very, very similar in that it's a more high adventure, but it's all water based. So sailing, motorboating, safe motorboating, high seas sailing, that kind of stuff. So it's based mainly on the water and learning watercraft and things like that. And it's interesting because all of these different programs has their own set of rules. They have their own set of achievements and advancements. And so the scouting program overall is a very versatile place. And just so you I don't think I mentioned it before, but maybe I did, but the venturing program and the Sea Scout program are both co-ed, and they're for age range 14 to 21. So boys and girls can join. Then it's been around for at least 15 years, if not longer. So the idea of girls being part of the Scouts is not a new thing. It's not new at all. A lot of people have resisted it. A lot of people have fought it, actually. They want to keep Boy Scouts an institution of only boys and only men. And I just want to say I totally understand where you're coming from in the instance of keeping it sacred. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with a program being exclusive to boys, just as there's nothing wrong with a program being exclusive to girls. There's nothing wrong with that principle in and of itself, right? Here's the thing. If there were an equivalent program available to girls, then I'd say, sure, keep them separate. But it's not. A lot of people have cited saying, well, that they don't need the Boy Scouts, they have the Girl Scouts. The Girl Scouts do not have the same quality of program. Whenever you think of scouting, a lot of people think it's just camping and knots and all that kind of stuff, which, sure, there's some of that in there. But when you get into venturing and varsity and Sea Scouts and all these different things, the higher end spectrum of it, right? And even in the Cub Scouts, the focus changes less on the physical camping stuff and more on the social and cultural impact of things, because the different programs, the different awards and achievements and different things you can earn in these programs are very different based on different merits and different things like that. So I just want it to be clear that this is not new. The idea of girls being in the Scouts is not new at all. People heard this and they think, oh my gosh, they're taking over, right? PC culture is just running rampant. And I just want you to know, personally, I am mostly conservative. I think I'm more libertarian than anything. But there are some issues that I think I am more progressive and left leaning on. Um, but I never would call myself a leftist at all, or even what most people would think of as progressive, because I take things as at a case by case basis. I don't even like to call myself a conservative or a right leaning person, because that I don't like that kind of label. I don't want to just say, well, I'm part of this group, so anything that comes out of the other side, any kind of policy that comes from over there, is wrong. That's such a narrow-minded way of thinking. If something has merit, it has merit. You have to take things individually, case by case, right? And look at it and say, is this actually an issue? Is this actually a problem, right? Overall, the type of thing it is could be a problem, culturally speaking. I mean, I very much believe, and agree that the idea of PC culture sweeping across our land, erasing gender lines and gender roles and different things, is not necessarily a good thing, because boys and girls are vastly different. I believe that biologically, hormonally, chemically, physically, very different. But that doesn't mean that they're not equal. Men and women should be treated equally. I agree with that 100%. 200%. I think that they should be treated equally. And you see, just because they're different doesn't mean they're not equal, right? And when I say equal, what I mean is treated equally, treated fairly. Then that's actually the really true meaning of what I'm saying. It's fair. What's fair, right? Because you have to account for differences. There's no way you can't account for differences. If you do, then you end up with a culture that's turned upside down like we have now, or at least going that direction, which I hate to see. But they need to be treated fairly. You know, I believe that you should be unbiased when it comes to this kind of thing. Women are more than capable of doing everything physically a man can do, right? I mean, military, if you want to be in the military, they have a set standard. If you can do these things, if you are physically fit to this standard, then you can join. It is fair. It doesn't care if you're a man or a woman. Sure, men might be a little bit more have more of an advantage because they're biologically geared to be that kind of a thing, or to do that kind of a thing. But it's that doesn't mean that it. But here's the thing: you have to be fair. So if a woman can do it, then you have to let her do it, right? It's fair. And just like a man, because heck, all men aren't created equal. I am a very large man. I've got a scoliosis in my back, which has led to a decrease in activity, which is increase of weight. My knees aren't as good because of my weight, my ankles, my feet, different things like that. I would not be able to do a lot of things that a lot of physically fit women would be able to do. So yes, we're not equal. We're not the same physically. Many women are more physically fit than I am, and more capable of doing everything in the Scouts than I am. I am not able to go backpacking in the Rockies like I did when I was, 17 years old. I'm 29 now. I'm trying to get back to a healthier state of living, but it's hard, But see, that's the thing. Men and women are equal in that we treat them the same regardless of gender. But we still have to account for the differences that exist. And we still have to keep in mind that we are different because of them. But we need to rejoice in those differences and not say that they're negatives, because they're not. The Boy Scouts have done a really good job in the Venturing Crew and Sea Scout program specifically of creating a program that allows both boys and girls, young men and women, to be a part of the program. They have done an excellent job. They've done it for years. This is not something that they're just dropping on us like a bomb, and they have no they have no plans, they have no anything. They have been doing this for years. They have got so much data backing up this decision. It's insane. A lot of people think this has come out of nowhere. It hasn't. I promise you it hasn't. Okay. I want everyone to understand from this vlog that the issue of allowing girls into the Boy Scouts and changing the name from the Boy Scouts of America to Scouts BSA. Okay. Change is going to happen. It's going to happen regardless. I mean, and if you want proof, look just 20 years ago. 20 years ago, our culture was vastly different from now. 20 years ago, no one even knew what the internet was, practically. It was just starting up. No, YouTube didn't exist 20 years ago. We didn't have smartphones in our hands that had small screens that could connect to the entirety of wealth of knowledge of mankind. We didn't have the capability to talk over vast distances. Video conferencing and communication was just a pipe dream back then. Now we have it all in droves. You know, change happens over time, and I wasn't a part of that change. I'm just a consumer on that stuff. But the people that did see the change coming took advantage of it, and they affected the change. They affected it in the way that they wanted to be advantageous to them and advantageous to others. Change happens regardless. It's just a fact of life. And you have like 3 or 4 different options when dealing with change. And this is actually something that they teach in Wood Badge training, which is the adult leadership training for the Boy Scouts of America. Well, Scouts BSA now. They teach that change happens, and you can do a few different things to react to it. You can fight the change, try to stop it from happening, but it's going to happen regardless, and it's just going to plow over you. You're going to be left in the dust, and the change is going to happen regardless. Even and actually, the change that you were fighting against could end up exactly the route that it goes because you were fighting it. You can ignore it, and the change happens around you, and you're not a part of it, and it goes a random direction that you didn't have any control of. Or the option that I think most people would take, makes the most sense, is you can see that change is coming, and you can actually direct it the way you wish to go. You can positively affect the change in a good way, and in a direction that makes sense, is fair, and honest. The Boy Scouts of America, now the Scouts BSA, the scouting program in general, is a wonderful program. I owe like 60% of who I am as a person to the scouting program. And it is not a bad thing for boys and girls to interact socially. I've heard people talk about safe spaces and how the scouting programs were the original safe spaces being exclusively boys and girls to the different types of programs, right? So Girl Scouts has only girls, Boy Scouts has only boys, we're separated, whatever. And that might be a little true, but at the same time, I think we need to get away from the idea that it's whenever people become secluded, they tend to, I think, in my opinion anyway, this is getting into my opinion. Well, this has really truly been my opinion, but whenever you seclude people, I don't think they hold up very well. You know, whenever we completely cut ourselves off, and I say completely, we fail. As humans, we are a very social species. And whenever, even in a small community, if the community cuts itself off, unless it can become self-sustaining, it's going to die off. And even if it does become self-sustaining, right, it has to grow, because if it doesn't grow, then it stagnates and dies. And when you grow, then you have to deal with other things. You have to expand. There's, that's just philosophy and human theory in general. So whenever you seclude a group of boys and to do their own thing, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. I think you have to monitor it if you do it that way. There's nothing wrong with it necessarily in this instance, a group of boys just being off doing boy things, just like there's nothing wrong with a group of girls going off doing girl things. But the way that the scouting program is built, there is no reason why it has to be gender exclusive. Everything that they do, girls, both boys and girls, can do. And when you look at extracurricular activities, there is a lot of just, boys are, and there's a lot of extracurricular activities out there. And here's something else too. A lot of people are thinking that whenever the National Scouting Association, the national committee makes this decision, oh, we were going to let girls into scouting now, that every troop in the world is going to have a girl in it, right? That's not how it works. Within the Boy Scouts, the chartered organization, usually like a church or a school or something like that, some sort of organization, some sort of real world organization charters or sponsors a Boy Scout troop to exist, or a Cub Scout pack or whatever. The chartered organization can put certain restrictions on the troop. For instance, if a Jewish synagogue wanted to make a Boy Scout troop, they could say that the only people that could join the troop have to be members of the Jewish synagogue. That is totally okay to do. It's a private organization. So in theory, you could have still boy-only troops. You could say that this charter organization says that this troop is a boy-only troop. That's totally okay to do. Just like you can say that this troop is a totally Jewish-only troop, or a totally Muslim-only troop, or a totally Christian-only troop. You might get some flack for that culturally, as I'm sure it would. But in theory, according to the rules of both the Boy Scouts, the charter organization can put restrictions on the troop as to its members and practices and things like that. Just because the national organization dictates these things doesn't mean that the actual local troop has to do it, right? It's more like the national organization has a set of overall rules and guidelines, and then the local level, the troop and the chartered organization can choose which guidelines of that setup to follow, right? And really the only, because it's interesting, basically all that the local troop gets from the national side is the sets of rules, books, and documents and curriculum and different things for the rules of advancement and and everything like that. But what they actually implement is very much a choice of the local troop. You can have troops that are vastly different. The troop that I was a part of when I was a kid had a patrol system where each patrol was year-based. So when a new group of boys crossed over from the Cub Scout pack into the Boy Scout troop when they were 11 years old, that group of kids, depending on how many, would be their own group, right? They would be part of their own patrol within the troop. So we would have, I remember the year I was a Scoutmaster, we had 2 groups of boys that we split off in 2 because of how many there were. And they became 2 different patrols within the troop, and they were all the young scouts, the first years. And we would pull older scouts in to help from other patrols to help do different things, because it's supposed to be boy led, and the best way to learn something is to teach it to someone else in different aspects of the Boy Scouting community and program. So but the way that it was structured was it was year based. It was almost like grades, right? So basically if you were a first year scout, sorry, I'm remembering silly things from the scouting program. If you're a first year scout, then that's what you were. But then as soon as you came along and the next group of scouts came in, then you became a second year scout. And then the next year came around and then you're a third year and fourth year. But that was just how our troop did it. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're advancing in rank every time. You have to do the work to get the new ranks. And there could be a life scout with a tenderfoot in the same patrol. You know, that doesn't really, that's like a different thing. But the way our troop was organized was every patrol had its own year section, right? So first year, second years, third years, fourth years. Then there's other troops where the patrols are skewed, and they have like they would have permanent patrols, and they wouldn't create new patrols every year. They would have permanent patrols in the troop, and they would split up all the first years amongst all the patrols. So every patrol would get like maybe 2 or 3 of the new upcoming Boy Scouts from the pack. And so then a patrol would have like 2 or 3 first years, 2 or 3 second years, a couple third years, maybe 1 or 2 fifth years, and an eagle or a life scout. That's like the oldest boy. And so whenever you do it that way, each patrol, whenever they go camping and different things, they don't have to have an adult leader necessarily or an older scout from a different place coming in and helping them. The patrol just works as it always has, and the younger scouts learn through the tradition of the older scouts doing what they always have known to do, and then they get older, and then so they become the experienced ones, and then the new scouts come in behind them and they learn the same way. So then it's this cycle, right? And that's one way to do it. And then there's the way that we did it in my troop, which was all the first years were all part of their own patrols, and they didn't intermingle with other older scouts because we were more of an advancement and merit badge and rank based troop where you just went through the ranks. And so whenever you were teaching a group of first years, it was easier to organize them by patrol, right? So anyway, I've gone on ranting for almost half an hour now. I just wanted to, in recap, okay, I wanted to make it clear that the Boy Scouts of America, the scouting program, I think that the change that they have made is a good one. And I don't understand the such tenacity and backlash this is getting from people whenever, I mean, well, I'll take that back. I do understand it because as being a mostly conservative person, I totally get not wanting to be catering to the leftist PC culture type of thing. I get that. But at the same time, you have to take these cases case by case, right? Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. If there's a good thing to it, if there's merit to it, then let's actually look at it for what it is and say, okay, this is a good thing. And so we'll judge it on its own. I mean, sure, you have to kind of keep everything else in view as well. But overall, I honestly do think that this is a good thing. And I only say that because I have been part of the scouting program for so many years, and I know the program through and through, in and out. And the program itself, there's nothing about it that needs to be gender exclusive. Nothing. And I think it's unfair to not allow that type of benefit to be only exclusive to boys. And my tune might change if there were a Girl Scout program out there that was just as good as the Boy Scouting program, but there's not. The Girl Scouts do very different things. Their merits are not hardly as good as the Boy Scouts, not even remotely. So with that in mind, I just think that this is not a bad thing. I can see where people come from when they're complaining about, oh, we're erasing gender lines. We're saying that all men and women are the exact same, even though we're not, and whatever. I think that there's a line that can be drawn where you can say, well, yes, we're not identical, men and women, boys and girls, but we need to be treated fairly and equally. I think that's how we need to do it. And, I love being who I am. I love the type of views I have. I am very passionate about them. But it really pains me to see people talking about things on a grand scale instead of taking things case by case. I think that we have that issue in America really, really bad, where we take these large scale numbers, these grandiose figures of all the different things that are going on, and we think, okay, so all these things are bad, instead of saying, okay, well, what was this individual's case? What happened? Why was this, like, for instance, with crime, right? You can make a statistic about all the crime in the world, or all the crime in the United States, and say, okay, all of this group of people do this type of crime. Okay. Right. So statistically that's accurate, but do we need to put in a program that limits all the people of that type? Or do we need to go in and look at it a little differently? Look at individual cases, or in cases of prejudice, do we say, okay, this thing is inherently prejudiced towards this thing, and it's like, okay, well, why do you think that? Well, because of this. Okay, because the data shows it, right? Well, just because inequity does not mean inequality, right? So whenever you look at two different things that are disparate, does that, like, let's put it this way. So the NBA does not have a lot of 5'4" white guys in it, right? The NBA does not have a lot of, and Jewish, let's say Jewish, right? So the NBA does not, this is something that I think Ben Shapiro said once. The NBA does not have a lot of 5'4" Jewish people in it, right? So is the NBA racist against Jewish people? Or are they prejudiced against 5'4" white guys? No, they're not. They're not. It's just that they're not physically capable of competing with other people, and it's the same kind of thing in a positive way. Are all black men athletically inclined? No, it's a case by case basis. It's case by case. You have to take things case by case. To just blanketly make a statement about something, that's not the way to do it. And in regards to this specific issue with the Boy Scouts, with Scouts, in this particular instance, this is not a bad thing. This is actually a good thing. Okay. There is no reason why this is bad. No reason. You can make blanket statements, and this is what's going to happen. People that see this and want to discredit my argument, they're going to say, okay, well, but all across the nation, men and women lines are getting blurred and blah 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 blah. And this is people from the conservative side, from the right, from people that I would more so agree with, probably. But I would say to them, you're making a blanket statement. You're saying that just because this issue overall is bad, this policy or whatever is not good, that every time it's used or iterated that it's a bad thing. That's not necessarily the case. We need to get away from that. That's my opinion. So anyway, guys, I'm going to get off here. If you have any questions or issues with what I said, please let me know. I probably misspoke a few times there. Knowing me, I'll probably have to clarify my words. I'm not a very articulate speaker or person to talk about things with, so hope you found this video informational. Hope you found it insightful. Just kind of, again, ramblings from a mind of a guy that was part of the scouting program for so long, experienced it, was in it, and seeing the changes that are happening. And honestly, I'm excited because I thought that I was gonna have to wait for a son to be able to get into the scouting program, and I'm not. I've got a 1-year-old daughter, and I'm excited that in about 5 years I'll be able to start her in a pack. I'm excited because I think that she's going to love it. I think a lot of kids will love the scouting program. And, you know, I just really hope that we can differentiate the things that are bad from the things that are good on a case-by-case basis, because if we don't, if we just, this is the whole issue with in my opinion, with our culture is we just make blanket statements. We just say this whole thing is bad, so let's just throw it all out without actually looking at it for what it is. And so anyway, that's all I got to say. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day and good weekend. Today's Thursday, I think. Yeah, today's Thursday. So hope you have a good Friday tomorrow and a good weekend, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.